Hi, Pretty and Tobeka. Nice to have you here. I hope you enjoy yourselves at this webinar. Hi, Sam. How are you doing? Malika here.
Hi, Malika. I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Well, too. Thank you. Thanks so much for joining today. Do you just want to check if you can share your screen and everything's working fine on your side?
Yeah, let me see. Do I need to keep my video on?
It's entirely up to you.
Okay, then maybe I can just keep it on in the beginning and then switch it off.
Sure, that sounds good. I can see your screen.
My video decided to shut.
Yeah, I can see it too.
All right, maybe let me. Is it moving as I'm scrolling or it's coming way after me?
I'm on slide 3 currently, as far as I can see. Number 4.
Okay.
The need for
I think then
yeah,
we should be fine.
great.
I have 10 minutes, Mas.
Sorry, you have?
10 minutes of talking.
Yeah. Yes. I don't know. I mean, there isn't a strict time limit as such. We just allocated 10 minutes, so there isn't too much pressure. But if you've got interesting things to say, which you definitely seem to have, you can go on, because we have 3 presenters today, you and 2 others. So it's not a lot of people, so you can take your time.
All right. No, I think that sounds good. I hope I'll be able to do 2:10 or maybe then 3 minutes on top of that, but I should be that allocated time should be fine.
Okay, that's great. So should I notify you maybe when you run into 12 minutes? Or
how will you do that?
No, I'll just have to speak over you. I'm hoping it doesn't happen, but in case you speak over 12 minutes or maybe say 15 minutes.
Yeah, maybe if I get to 50, I hope I won't. So,
yeah, I hope so too, and I'm sure you won't.
Yeah, and I don't think I'll get to 15, but yeah, if we get to 15, then it reduces the question time. Then we can let me know. On the question that we asked, how is that the one we're going to be discussing?
Yes, so this is just a question that you might want to discuss with the audience, and I really liked your question. The one that you sent, right? How do you incorporate these into your everyday diet?
Okay. Now let's see then how the discussion goes. Thanks.
Sure, thanks.
All right.
Hi, William. How are you doing? Can you hear us?
Hello, how are you?
Well, thanks. How are you?
I'm fine.
Can we just quickly run a test to see that your presentation is working?
Okay. Maybe I can just show it.
Sure, yeah, just if you can share your screen and if things are moving like we just did with Sam.
Is it showing?
Yes, we can see your present. Great. Yeah, it all seems to be working. Thanks.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Hui Hui, thanks for joining us. Would you like to also do the same? Would you like to test your presentation?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Sorry, yes, I can hear you. Yes, let me just share the screen.
Great, thanks.
Let me put on the full screen. Is that all looking good?
Yes, seems to be working.
Right. Should be all right, I hope.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I see it at 3 p.m. We are waiting for some more participants to join and also for Tafatsua who will be opening the meeting. So I think we wait until we have Tafatsua or at least for the next 5 minutes. Thanks for your patience. Okay, I see Tafatu has joined us and a few other participants have also joined us. Welcome, everyone. I'm hoping we get more people joining along the way, but without further delay, I think I would like to invite our presenters and panelists to start this webinar today. So this webinar is about mainstreaming neglected and underutilized species for food and nutritional security, which is a thrust area of the Center for Transformative Agriculture and Food Systems at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. And the center does a lot of work with different partners across different countries. A lot of the work is focused on helping farmers improve their productivity and their resilience. So I'd like to invite Tafadzwa Mbadi, the co-director of the CTAFS, the center, to open this session for us by introducing the work that CTAFS does. Thank you, Tafadzwa.
Thank you very much, Malika, and everyone else. I think it's a good afternoon to you in South Africa, and good morning for others in different time zones. And welcome to this dialogue today, which I hope is going to be quite exciting and entertaining. So let me share my screen as part of the introduction that I want to give. So just in terms of the background and context, at the CTAFS, we have done research since around 2008, focusing on mainstreaming underutilized indigenous and traditional crops into the food system. And this research was driven and remains driven by a realization that crop systems and dietary diversification is no longer an alternative. It's no longer something that we should be aspiring to, but it is now more of a necessity driven by various factors, such as increasing levels of malnutrition, people not being able to access sufficient foods with enough nutrients and dietary requirements, also driven by issues related to sustainability of food systems, agricultural systems, and of course, the very immediate and real threat of climate change, which threatens the sustainability of the major crops to be able to continue providing the majority of our calories as it is currently now. So we have invested years of research into looking into the potential of this basket of crops in terms of initially screening their potential, in terms of drought and heat stress tolerance, profiling them for nutritional content and value, and then looking at them in terms of other attributes that may be desirable under climate change, their fitness for purpose in terms of being deployed into marginal environments. So the whole idea is premised on this image that I've just shared with you, which is just taking us back to the realization that originally, our food systems were underpinned by huge diversity, about 500,000 plant species that used to underpin the diversity of our food systems. But we've gone down over time to just 3 crops, accounting for more than 70% of our calorific intake. And with that, there have been significant trade-offs in terms of genetic diversity and resilience, and also sustainability, especially within the smallholder farming sector. And so we are looking at reintroducing or promoting these crops alongside the major crops. So that's why we talk of mainstreaming. We are not looking at them as replacement crops, but we are looking at them as diversifying the basket, taking us back to that time when there was more diversity and people have more options, with the realization that with climate change, a lot of the current crops, a lot of the current areas suitable for production are going to be changing and shifting. So we need to provide people with viable options that can be deployed. And it is our hope that today, during the presentations that will be given by our speakers and the various discussions, we will look at it from different perspectives of how exactly we can start mainstreaming these crops. What is the opportunity space? What are the challenges that still need to be addressed through research? Who are the partners that need to be brought on board to bring about this transformation in our food systems? And with that, I welcome everyone to this dialogue, and I really hope you get to enjoy the conversations, and I'm looking forward to it. Back to you, Malika.
Thank you very much, Tafatwa. Can we perhaps have the screen back, please?
I'm trying to
Right, okay,
stop my screen share.
sure.
You can also stop it from there. Oh, there it is.
Thank you very much. Our first speaker for today is Dr. Samkeliswe Hlophe-Ginindza, and she works at the Water Research Commission, and she's going to present to us some really interesting work and some interactive thinking about traditional crops. Samke, would you like to take over?
All right, thanks, Marek, for the introduction. Maybe let me just start by making sure I can share my screen, and then we can kick it off. All right, thanks once again. As mentioned, my name is Samkeliswe Hlophe-Ginindza, and I am with the Water Research Commission. I am a research manager under the Water Utilization in Agriculture key strategic area, and I look after the food security portfolio. With that, maybe I can, before I start my presentation, I think I just need to unmute my video. I'm unable to. Okay, that's fine. So I'll keep it up. Anyway, as I've said, my name is Samkeliswe Hlophe-Ginindza, and I'm with the Water Research. I'm going to be talking about mainstreaming traditional crops for resilient food system. I think the background Tafatwa has laid is quite important, and also just fits in quite nicely with the work that we are doing. So what I'm presenting now, this first slide really is kind of a summary of my presentation today. We are going to be looking at where we are. As Tafatwa has said, our food basket is very shrunk. So we are faced with a shrinking food basket. We have climate change issues that are playing into the space. And then some of the risks that we have is the increasing in population and also increasing in food security. More than 50% of the population currently in South Africa are food insecure. And then we also have environmental degradation, and with the shrinking food basket and the high caloric diets that we are currently consuming, we are seeing a lot of increase in non-communicable dietary diseases. And then what we do need to do is to move towards a more secure food and nutrition population. We need our food systems to be more resilient and adapted to the changing climatic conditions, and then ultimately leading to improved health and livelihoods. So what we need, what we are proposing, some of the things include sustainable food systems, reintroduction of orphan crops or the traditional crops that we're talking about today, and then also looking at circular economy, how all this ties up, because then there's, if we go into that space, we are actually reducing some of the pollution into our environment. All right. Great. Now this graph just shows a drought exposure on our rain-fed cropping systems across local municipalities in South Africa between 1981 to 2018. If you move up towards the green, it shows that there's low exposure, but towards the darker red indicates higher exposure. And we see that the most extreme exposure is observed in the Northern Cape, the Northwest and Limpopo provinces. And additionally, what I just want to mention here is that we've seen increase in the dry years in our food systems. From 2010, we're seeing much more increase in the exposure of our rain-fed systems. Right, so then we are in a serious crisis, I'd say, and we do need a resilient food system. I think as Tafaza mentioned, we are not looking at traditional crops to replace the mainstream crops, but we are looking at them as alternatives. So I'm just going to look at where we are currently. We are fed by a very few food species. There are over 12,000 food species that are classified as suitable for human consumption, and yet we are fed by only 30 crops, and we have only 3 making over 60% of our dietary energy requirements. So we do need to look at increasing the options that we have, the options that are available. As I've said, it's getting more and more drier, and in those marginal lands, the provinces that I've mentioned, and all the provinces really, but we are seeing the increase in the drought. So we do need then to look at what can we grow in those lands, because there are indigenous crops that can still be grown and that can help to increase the food basket. So these 3 crop species that we are mainly focusing is rice, maize, and wheat, which is what is giving us most of our caloric intake. Additionally, our food systems are quite, the production of these 3 feed species that I've just mentioned are much more monoculture, which really leads to land degradation because of so much chemicals that are needed, and some of them, like the rice, really water intensive. And when we're looking at drier years, it means we cannot produce these foods in our country. So we'll have to rely on a complex and very long supply chains, which are very vulnerable. We've seen with the current status that we're in, we are importing over 75% of our sunflower oil from Ukraine and Russia. And with the war, we've seen such drastic increases in prices for this, for sunflower oil, for instance. So we do need to be more resilient. We do need to prepare ourselves in our food systems for all these shocks. Now, these are some of the threats that are to our food systems. I have mentioned climate change and biodiversity loss. The decline of traditional crops, the decline of the growth of these crops also causes a decrease in biodiversity, which has severe implications on the environment and the provision of ecosystem services, as well as wood cover loss. And there is then the double burden of malnutrition, which is caused by our poor diet and also just insufficient nutrient composition of these diets that we currently rely on. Agriculture, unfortunately, is both a victim and a culprit, contributing to some of these threats. It is a victim because we are now, as the sector, experiencing declining yields caused by climate change. And we are also the culprit because we have largely contributed to where we find ourselves with such a limited food basket. Through agricultural interventions, we have seen increase in soil degradation and biodiversity loss. We've seen an increase in depleting of water resources, including groundwater. And the aim, one of the goals of the National Development Plan in our country is to increase actually the area under irrigation so that we can increase food production and cater for the growing population needs. But really we cannot do that because our water resources, as I mentioned, are 98% is already allocated. And through agriculture, we've created over-reliance on multinational agricultural input companies. With these weak and complicated supply chains, we're experiencing also very high fertilizer prices because we do not produce the fertilizers ourselves. And then also we have now contributed to decimating our own immune systems through exposure to agrochemicals and poor diets. It's not all bad. The introduced crops are not all bad, but we do see to the paradox when we look at these crops, because they are associated with high input costs, which, as I've said, are also controlled externally. We'll then have to import a lot of these agricultural inputs to keep these food systems going. And with increasing drought and increasing climate change and variability, the yields from these crops also, especially in our land, because they are not really adapted to our harsh local conditions, then we are going to be experiencing a reduced harvest and reduced outputs. These crops also are prone to pests and diseases, which necessitates, again, introduction of pesticides and herbicides to ensure optimal growth and yields. And then we have also then the dietary associated malnutritions, which are malnutrition because of the limited nutrients that are found in these foods, leading to lifestyle diseases such as diabetes. Now we are talking of traditional crops as the crops for the future, as I think Prof. Mapaudi highlighted earlier on. These have already been there. We are looking at increasing the basket, providing more options. We do have the rice or the maize or the wheat for the energy requirement, but for a healthy society, we need all these other macronutrients and micronutrients as well. So the traditional crops, this is where then they come in. They are suited for harsh local environment and provide nutritional diversity. They are an option for crop rotation for farmers, which then leads to improved soil fertility and agro diversity. They provide opportunities for farmers to disrupt pest and disease cycles and also replenish nutrients in the soil. The farming of these crops increase the presence of pollinators as well and improve food security under climate change. Now also looking at these crops to mitigate malnutrition, which is also predicted to increase under climate change. With the risk of shrinking food basket under climate change, mainstreaming these crops into local food systems will mitigate malnutrition, which is a problem that we are currently facing in the country. And introduction of this will also create niche market for local economies. I'll maybe expand on that a little later on. Traditional crops are also resilient. They're also very highly nutritious, containing several macro and micronutrients such as vitamins, calcium, iron, magnesium, and zinc when you compare maybe sorghum, for instance, to maize. Some of the examples also include finger millet, which is slowly digested, making it a very popular diet among diabetic patients because of its low glycemic index. And then finger and pearl millets as well have been shown to have anti-cancer properties, which might have a potential to contribute to the prevention of cancer. We have seen such another interesting plant that we are currently, working on, which is the uvendle in Sixhosa, Pelargonium pseudoside, a traditional African plant, this one, that is currently actually being exported to Germany for its medicinal properties. It is has properties that are related to helping the upper respiratory. So they are helping upper respiratory diseases, and currently then just recently in South Africa, being used in Linkages C for the same purposes. So we do have these crops, but it was on the red list because of over-exploitation. It is harvested from its local environment and exported mostly to Germany. So these are some of the crops that we need to look at. And then we also know that traditional crops will help towards the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, because food systems make approximately 30% of these greenhouse gas emissions. Apologies for that noise. So if we look at increasing these traditional crops, we will then also reduce our greenhouse gas emission, because we'll also reduce the reliance in livestock production, which contributes to over 80% of these greenhouse gas emissions. They also tolerate pests and diseases and are able to grow well in marginal soils. So if all those benefits are there, why are we still where we are? Why are these crops still not mainstreamed? I'm just going to look at some of these challenges that we currently face in not order of importance, but maybe it is. Firstly, we have had policy blindness, I'd say. These mainstream crops are where they are today because of the support that they received in terms of breeding, in terms of marketing, diversity of the produce. We have so much, we can produce so many versatile products from these crops, but with our traditional crops, they are still in their traditional state. We have not bred them for resilient, we have not bred them for even increased production. So we do need policy that will help and to regulate the sectors from breeding to farming all the way to marketing and consumption. Again, we also need scientific evidence to substantiate some of these health benefits. Most of these traditional crops, it's word of mouth passed down from someone, and then sometimes the information is lost. We do need scientific evidence to substantiate this. And then we need markets to also improve the utilization and marketing. We need infrastructure for these crops. We need to raise consumer awareness and also understand the operation of the informal markets under which these crops currently operate or are found. And then we do need value addition and new product development. Another problem, as I've said, is also unreliable supply and poor quality, as most of them are just harvested from the wild and it's not really a regulated space. Well, just when I was this afternoon driving out, I saw this car that has imported food from the UK. So right here in South Africa, we do have an outlet where you can go and find imported food, UK food. But do we have such for our traditional foods? I thought maybe that was something we could talk about this afternoon. If you leave South Africa and maybe you are abroad somewhere, are you able to just go and find South African food? Or even tourists when they come into our country, can we have to say, no, these are some of the foods that you must try when you are in South Africa. This is how we promote our own indigenous crops and make sure that they are mainstreamed and make sure that they are, even people come in and get to enjoy the delicacies. This is some of the, I think, this is some of the success stories that we have with some of the indigenous foods that have been able to just pave a way and find a spot in the mainstream like rooibos tea. I think all of us have seen it, have had it, and we enjoy it. And there's so many products as well that have been developed in rooibos, which is a South African indigenous crop, and it has found its way into the mainstream, and it is exported as well abroad. So these are some of the things that we should be looking at and ensuring that the communities as well from which these plants are grown also develop, benefit from these initiatives. We have Marula success story as well. There's so many products that are produced from Marula, from beverages, foods, even skincare products. So this is what we are looking at when we are looking at some of these traditional or indigenous foods. Baobab fruit is also one of them that through targeted efforts has also been able to find its way. I haven't tried any of these, so we still do need to increase the reach, but at least there is some way, there is some thing developed there. Now, I did say we have policy blindness, but there is some rays of hope in our country at least. We do have the national strategy for indigenous crops, which is currently under review. So if you go to the website for the Department of Agriculture, you'll be able to find this policy and maybe put your inputs if you have some. So the main purpose of this strategy is to lay a foundation and framework to guide the development of indigenous food sector in South Africa, promoting the production and the consumption, supporting research, and promote sustainable production practices, and lastly, to look at improving productivity, profitability, and market development. I think I really like the last part, to look at the market development and export avenues for some of these traditional crops. Again, also we do have from
Sam,
yes?
Sorry to interrupt, but can we wrap up in maybe a minute, please?
Great, I think I am almost at the end. All right, but we also do have the Department of Environmental Affairs protecting the biodiversity. To summarize, I think these are some of the benefits of mainstreaming and indigenous crops. I will not look at all of them, but I'll touch on those that maybe I haven't touched, like favoring the poor because some of them are just harvested from the wild, and favor women as well. They don't have to spend many hours cultivating, but they might have other productive time for education. And offer comparative advantage for our local producers. I think that is all from my side. Thank you so much, Malika. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Sam. Okay, so we are running a little bit behind time, but we do have one question for you, Sam, which I would also like to ask. So can we perhaps deal with it now and then proceed to the next speaker? So the question is from Ndiko Ludidi. Ndiko, would you like to introduce yourself and ask the question?
Thank you very much, Malika. My name is Ndiko Ludidi. I'm from the Department of Biotechnology at the University of the Western Cape, and I'm a plant scientist here. Sam Kelsey, in one of your slides, you mentioned that the adoption of, well, let's say, underutilized indigenous crops would contribute to a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. And you alluded to that being in connection with decreased reliance on livestock. I just wanted you to expand a little bit on what you really meant by that, because my thinking was that livestock is just as important in terms of food security And I mean, I know there's this movement for, towards adoption of diets that are plant-based, but from a realistic point of view, I think livestock is going to stay with us for quite some time, and the strategy towards reduction of greenhouse gas emissions as far as livestock is concerned would, in my opinion, include strategies for maintaining livestock as a source of protein, but perhaps looking at what we feed to livestock that would reduce greenhouse emissions. But that's just my thought. I wanted to have a little bit of clarity on, from you on that statement.
All right, thanks, Ndiko, for the question. I think mainly what I'm looking at, I agree with you. I think meat or livestock will stay with us, and it's a really important part of our diet. We are not looking at eliminating it under any cost. But what I meant with that slide is that because food systems, research shows that food systems contribute about 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions, and 80% of these come from food systems that are associated with livestock production. Now if we open up the options, because right now we have very limited options, almost every day we eat meat because of the protein source. But if we introduce more protein sources in our diets, we will not have to then rely on meat on a daily basis, which will reduce then the amount of production and as well as the greenhouse gas emissions that are associated with that, because we do have very high, we have traditional crops that have very high protein content, for instance, that we can use to, as an option that we can use to include in our diet so that we do not rely only on meat for our protein source.
All right, thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks, Ndiko, and thanks, Samke. And I was just wondering, there are some of these indigenous crops that also have byproducts that can be used as livestock feed. So, I think that might also be another option to explore, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah, then that just goes to the circular economy and closing the loop, so that we don't have to plant crops specifically just for animal feed, but we can use some of these indigenous crops, which are also good for the environment for that.
Great, thank you so much, Samke. And this is kind of, you've built a really lovely, wholesome, big picture for us to see where current agriculture stands and where we need to be. And I really also like the point you made about how can we promote South African local indigenous food as special food, because I've had friends traveling to South Africa and saying, well, where is the food? We're only seeing burgers and pizza and stuff like that, but we'd really like to taste real South African food. And that's definitely something perhaps that we should be recommending. And it's great to know that the government has actually opened up the strategy for indigenous food crops review. So all of us here, if we have any ideas about that, I encourage you to go have a look and see how we can contribute. Are there any further questions for Samke at this point? Okay, I take the silence as a no for now, but please keep your thinking hats on, keep the questions coming in the chat box. And thank you, Samke. We will now move to William. Dr. William Musazura is working at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and he is working on peri-urban agriculture. Also, we talked about circular economies. So I believe some of his work also feeds into this, this picture of trying to produce food through circular economies, particularly in urban systems, which are up and emerging, up and coming. William, thank you for joining us today. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction. I'm a crop science by background, but also an expertise in sustainable agriculture, focusing on resource recovery from waste-based streams. So this afternoon, I'm going to talk about the peri-urban agriculture using wastewater from decentralized wastewater treatment system. So we did a lot of work on different things. So today I'm just focusing on the decentralized wastewater treatment systems in urban, peri-urban agriculture. Thank you so much. Okay, so basically, I'm going to talk about sustainable peri-urban agriculture in South Africa using by producing underutilized crops such as taro, using the decentralized wastewater treatment system, effluent. So basically, so I'd like to give a brief background of the societies. Like as the population increase, the society is also facing a lot of challenges. One of the challenges that we are having is that there is increasing industrialization, and also at the same time, most of the people are now moving from rural areas to urban areas to search for jobs and greener pastures. As a result, these people are staying in informal settlements, which are not connected to any sanitation systems. So the end result is that we have a lot of waste being generated from such systems, and we don't have adequate sanitation technologies to save these people. This is also causing pollution and exposing people to health risks. And also on the other side, where these people mostly staying in informal settlements are not employed, they're coming to look for jobs, but they find out that the jobs are not easy to find. In the end, they are unemployed and end up being food insecure. Then we have other lot of challenges such as access to nutritious food. So these are just the basic challenges we are also having in our societies. So from the statistics, we can see that 60% are living in urban areas, especially in South Africa, and the 13.1% are in informal settlements. That is the statistics SA information. And also, if you look at it, there's 2.4% of people in SA who do not have access to adequate sanitation. So when we talk of no access to sanitation, meaning that they don't have any toilet, it could be a pit latrine or a flushing toilet. So these people are resorting to open defecation, which is a very common thing in informal settlement, that when someone comes to the in those areas, you build your own shack, you're staying there, you don't have any means of accessing sanitation, so they end up defecating in the open space. And also the other challenge that also we are seeing, that most of the people are relying on social grant from the community survey statistics. It's shown that about 42% in Eastern Cape are relying on social grants. So these are very serious problems that are being faced by communities, especially in peri-urban areas. So to deal with these challenges, my focus is on sanitation side, like how can we address sanitation challenges faced in the peri-urban areas, while at the same time also dealing with socio-economic issues such as the unemployment and food insecurity. So I'm going to take more of an ecological sanitation approach, which is more for the circular economy, where I'm going to explore the environmentally sound, economically viable, and socially acceptable sanitation systems that can also provide adequate sanitation, while at the same time recovering nutrients that can be used for agriculture, so that people can be able to produce food for self-sustenance or even for commercial purposes. So I'm focusing on the decentralized wastewater treatment system. It's a technology that was developed by the Bremen Overseas Research and Development Association. And it has been used in several countries such as India, Indonesia, excuse me, in China, in different setups such as schools, informal settlements, as well as communities. So the technology here in South Africa is something that is new and under pilot phase. We got one decentralized wastewater treatment system in South Africa that is being piloted in Durban, Newlands Marshall. The system, Newlands Marshall, can be able to treat about 50 cubic meters of wastewater per day. And also, this system also can come in different sizes. It can either be 1 cubic centimeter capacity or 50 cubic centimeter capacity or a 1,500 cubic meters per day capacity. So in general, what is the decentralized wastewater treatment system? When you look at the sanitation systems that we currently have, with the centralized treatment systems where toilets are connected to the flushing systems, flushing sewerage systems, where water can be treated off-site at the treatment plant, and that water is also discharged into the rivers. So these systems are very expensive to set up. And also for scenarios in peri-urban areas where the population is ever increasing, and also there is no control by the municipalities to plan like like on how to connect these informal settlements to the centralized systems. So this decentralized wastewater treatment system can be an option because one, it's a low-cost treatment technology that does not need any energy to operate, can be made from the low-cost materials, and it's also robust. It can treat different types of waste due to higher retention time. It doesn't use a lot of chemicals. It can just use anaerobic processes to treat wastewater. And also at the same time, the treated wastewater can also be used for other purposes such as agriculture. But right now, if you look at the approach, most municipalities are focused on treating wastewater for discharge. But while yet we are having problems with the food security, food insecurity, and other socio-economic issues. So from my experience over the past 12 years, I've been working on the decentralized wastewater treatment technology to try and find how we can also integrate it with food systems in communities, such that when you're introducing such a technology, it must be something that can be valuable to the communities, not only saving sanitation problems, but other resulting problems. So when we look at the decentralized wastewater treatment, we find that the resulting effluent is rich in nutrients. When we discharge that effluent into the water bodies, we are going to have a lot of problems: loss of aquatic biodiversity, eutrophication, and also the in a time we are having water challenges. We are also diminishing the water quality on most of the. We are also increasing water scarcity because we are depleting the quality of the freshwater resources available. So which means that we should also change the way we think and also take a circular economy approach where we recover the nutrients supposed to be disposed into the environment back in the food systems. So the decentralized wastewater treatment effluent is got nutrients that is from the studies, it's got a high NNP, which means that it can also be used as irrigation water and the nutrient source in communities. And also we did some assessments on the water quality to see, does it comply with the irrigation water quality standards? So based on the existing standards in South Africa, it complied with all the standards. There's no effects on crops. And also there's no problems with the soils, the environment, and also does not affect the irrigation equipment. So meaning that the quality of the wastewater coming from these systems is good for agricultural use without problems. But we have one of the challenges that this technology is being improved also to further remove pathogens so that you can also use it for unrestricted agricultural use. When we mean unrestricted agricultural use, we are saying that we can apply it to crops like lettuce, tomatoes that can be eaten raw. But in this context, the World Health Organization guidelines allows that the effluent can be used for crops that can be processed or cooked. So this means that this is a very good source of nutrients. And also on the other side, not only nutrients, we are looking at also other issues such as the loss of soil biodiversity due to continuous use of inorganic fertilizers. So the treated wastewater also contains some organic carbon that is important in also increasing the soil microbiota as well as the nutrient recycling, which is also one of the things that we need also to look at to see the future sustainability of our soils. So how can we also integrate such systems, the new technology coming out into the existing food systems? We know in South Africa, taro is a staple crop that is grown in many rural areas, Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, and they use it, they produce it for subsistence farming as a source of food, as well as a source of income generation. And from the literature, it is found that the cones and the leaves of the taro also contains some mineral nutrients that are important. And interestingly, I found that it's got 11% protein and also about around 85% starch, and it contains some other antioxidants that are also that are also good for our health. And one of the other studies, I found that it is a non-animal source of zinc, which is also an important nutrient required in our diets. And also the other thing that I liked about the taro is that we are looking at the irrigation water being produced in peri-urban areas. So that's, when we talk of irrigation, let's not take it as on a drought point of view, but also on the rainfall patterns. There are some areas where we are having more rainfall, like here in KwaZulu-Natal, and also we're in areas where we are also trying to introduce waterborne sanitation systems. We are going to produce a lot of effluent that we might not be able to dispose. So if we are to produce effluent, we need to fully utilize it, leave less available for disposal into water bodies. So what we have to do is that to make sure that we have to use as much as effluent we produce in agricultural systems. Then taro is the crop that can also be caught on, because it's a crop that can tolerate waterlogging, meaning that even if the effluent is produced in excess, you can be able to produce your crops. So that is one of the things that we found, that crops like taro, madumbe can also be introduced into the circular economy. And the other thing that I like about taro is that it's a crop that you cannot eat raw, you have to cook it. This means that there are less risks, microbial risks, when you're dealing with, when you're irrigating your effluent crops such as corn, or even the leaves that are coming from the taro can also be cooked. So this is another way of trying to say that, okay, engineers in the environmental engineering field are looking at some other wetland crops to remove nutrients, to do what, to meet the standards for discharging the water bodies. But this taro is a food security crop. It's a staple diet, nutritious crop that we can also try to use in our field, rather than passing the water in the wetlands, apply in a field, in a taro field, where you can also double the use of treating wastewater at the same time, extracting nutrients, returning them back into the food systems. So this is the technology that we have. So we have the DWATS as a technology, and also that can provide sanitation in the peri-urban areas. We have the taro crops that has the potential to be grown in peri-urban areas using such effluent. So what are the challenges on the grounds? What are the issues that needs to be addressed? How can we move forward? How can we give this to the communities? So the opportunities we have is that the appropriate technology, we have the expertise, a lot of science has been done, and also there's information on these sanitation technologies, guidelines, how to apply, how to monitor environmental pollution, how to minimize risks, and also how to meet the certain quality standards requirements. We have this information. But also, one of the biggest challenges that we have been trying to see that most of the people are reluctant to do some of the agricultural production because of the lack of market. Everyone would want to start a business where you can be able to sell it somewhere. So without knowing where I'm going to sell my business, then no one will be interested. So if only there could be available market for the products that are produced using human-derived materials such as treated wastewater, then it's opening a door for communities to grow these crops, even in peri-urban areas, to venture into such businesses, empower themselves, and also at the same time minimize their reliance on social grants, and also add much more extra income for access to more nutritious foods. So this can not only be a direct benefit, it can be an indirect benefit. And also at the same time, this is a technology that has been still in development. Then most of the farmers don't have knowledge on how to produce such crops using such effluents. So it is very important that the farmers need to be educated and know like how to produce these crops using such type of water. Certification of products, much of that has been also been explained by the previous speaker, that we need also a way that this is a product, South African product that has been produced using, like in this context, you're talking of treated wastewater. So we don't have this certification, or we don't have this knowledge, and the markets are not there. So this is the challenge that is available on the ground. So how can we move forward? How can we?
William, sorry to interrupt you, but can we wrap up in a minute, please?
Okay, thank you so much. Moving forward, this is a complex system. We have to include every actors across the food and sanitation value chains. So we need also to include the private sectors, the regulators, financial institutions, cooperatives, farmers, policymakers, to bring them together on the table so that we can be able to communicate the one language and also move forward in dealing with such challenges. Capacity building is needed also to incapacitate farmers on value addition. How can you increase the value of the product? And also the sanitation safety plans. How do you minimize your risks? And also some business management skills. Some farmers, they don't even know how to write proposals. And some of the farmers, they don't know where to get some funding. And so, which means these are the skills that are very pertinent to the success of such systems. And also the policy is, there's no clear policy on like, how can we, is it legal to produce such products, or what are the implications? People are skeptical because it's not clearly stated. There's also some disjointment across these intersectors, government organs. So it's also, we need also find a way we can find an enabling policy that can allow such things to occur. And at the same time, we talk of certification of products. We need to also find a to increase the consumer confidence. We need to also to have a way that this is a certified circular economy product made from treated wastewater, add value, just what is done to the organic products. So this is just basically what we are trying to talk about. We have the crop taro is an underutilized crop that has the potential to solve sanitation and socio-economic problems in the societies. But this also needs to be well marketed, and like to find the ways in which people can be able to add value in such crops to increase the confidence, to allow farmers to produce such crops for food security as well as the nutritional security. So this was just basically my my presentation, and if there are some more questions, I think they are open for the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, William. Please feel free to raise your hands or put a comment in the chat box for any questions and comments for William. And while we wait, can I quickly ask one question, William? So you displayed to us what the DWAT system consists of and how it works, how it functions. But then when we talk about farmers, wanting to use this treated wastewater, what is the kind of infrastructure that we're talking about? Are we talking about one household treating their wastewater and irrigating their field, or does it have to become a neighborhood sort of infrastructure that farmers within the ward, for example, or the block can use? What level are we talking about, if I may ask?
Okay, that would depend now on the size of the plant that you have. Because, for example, if we are to have like 1,300 cubic meter one, you're talking of a community scale. And also, if it is like a 1 cubic meter one, might be like a household scale. So the scale would depend on the size of the technology that is on the ground.
I see, right. And there are options for you to have one household, one farm level
Yes.
treatment plants, as well as something that's slightly larger.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Okay, right. So if anyone has any more questions and comments, which are most welcome, please keep them coming. I request you to either pop them in the chat box or hold on to them until we finish. Hui, can I invite you to please take the floor? So Hui Chai, Dr. Hui Chai works at the University of Nottingham, Malaysia. She also collaborates with the center, and she works on Bambara groundnut. And I'm not going to take any further time. Please go on, Hui. Thanks for joining us today.
Okay, thank you, Malika, and thanks everyone. Hi everyone, good afternoon, and thanks everyone. So my name is Hui. I'm with University of Nottingham, Malaysia. One of our main research interests is to develop solutions for sustainable crop production, and also to build out resilient food system. And in this case, we largely focus on underutilized crops such as Bambergana. So hence today, let me just share my slides. Right. Okay, so today I would just like to briefly share with you about the roadmap towards breeding commercial variety of neglected and underutilized crop species. And in this case, I'll be using Bambergana as an example. So just allow me to just a minute. Right. It's okay. I'll just keep the video on. Okay. So, right, so we have heard some of our previous presenters to talk about some challenges of food security. So hereby just want to briefly share again that there are many evidences talking about challenges of food security, especially in the under the changing climate and also increase of world population. So for the past 6 years, there evidence shows that there are increased food insecurity and has affected more than 30% of the world population. So now, unfortunately, we are still heavily or solely relies on major three crop species, rice, maize, and wheat for more than 60% of the world calorie intake. Where else actually there are plenty of other crops which are currently, most of them remain underutilized and also produce the local environment. So it's important for now to start thinking about maintaining the balance between the global food supplies and local production, given that these export restrictions can be a major problem nowadays, and that could affect the global food supply chains. And also, if we solely rely on food imports, it's actually imposing a risk to a nation. So that's actually leads us to a need to raise awareness about diversifying our food basket. And we now here is to look into the role of neglected and underutilized crop species in the context of diversifying food basket, and also to address the challenges for food and nutritional security. So for Bambergana, it is a legume that is indigenous to Africa and is also widely cultivated across sub-Saharan Africa. It is a nutritious crop food. Is well recognized for the drought resistance characteristics, and it can be grown in poor soil due to their capability of fixing nitrogen. However, they are still largely exists as a land-raised form with only a few that is developed to become varieties. And also they have quite a few unfavorable traits such as photoperiod sensitivity, hard to cook traits, and also have anti-nutritional factors. So given so, till now, Bamberganas have been widely collected from different regions, and our population structure analysis actually showed us that there is a wide and diverse range of genotypes and languages in Bambergana from Africa and Asia. And these lines have been collected from different gene banks, farmers, markets, researchers across different areas. So with the reports actually have suggested up to 420 lines that is currently available. So with this diversity of germplasm presence in Bambergana, actually it can facilitate the progress of breeding program in Bambergana. So it is our aim to develop breeding lines, develop the structured populations, and also utilize currently advanced genomic tools to assist in the assist and facilitates the improvement of the underutilized crops like Bambergana, and ultimately we hope to develop and release new improved varieties or commercial varieties with traits that is interested to farmers, to consumers. And last but not least, we also wish to have these pipelines to be translated to study and develop other under research species. So I'll briefly also go through this again in later slides. So here are some examples that has been conducted in Bambergana in order to develop improved varieties in a farmer's field. So that's some examples, including to develop structured population and breeding lines, and also integrate with some genomic tools for variety development. Other research topics such as hard to cook in Bambergana, study the drought resistance mechanisms, not only for above ground, but also for root systems, and also looking into photoperiod sensitivity issues, where actually some of the genotypes of Bambergana can still produce pods and flowers under long photoperiod, so they are not really affected or not really sensitive to photoperiod. So there are a lot more of other research works. Just pick a few to showcase today. So for structured populations and breeding lines, we have conducted control crossings using a few core parental lines that is originated from different countries. So as a result, the segregating population actually have produced a population of breeding lines, which by now they have been advanced to almost 7 to 8 generations. So this can be applied in the crossing between the Chikanipuru and Dipsy. So these breeding lines were crossed with expectation to have potential traits such as early maturing, long taproot growth habit. They can actually survive in drought environment, and with the short cycle, they actually can assist farmers to have more produce. Yeah. So with these breeding lines, that can be further being selected. For example, subject to field evaluation, selected and developed it to become a commercial variety that with the traits that I have mentioned here. So other than that, they also have different crops that is expected to have to carry different potential traits such as photoperiod insensitivity. So these breeding lines, which will be used for selections for and develop commercial variety. At the same time, the informations also allow us to subject them into a genetic analysis. So that can help us to identify the closely linked genes that control the traits of interest. So we have this like a mapping and QTL identification. So in addition to that, Bambergana also have been submitted or have been sent for sequencing. So we have some analysis which is still ongoing. And of course, there is also a paper that is still under preparation and is expected to be submitted by December 2022. So with these genomic tools and genomic informations that can further accelerate the identification of potential genomic regions of candidate genes in Bambergana, and also will be useful for selection of individual lines with, for example, markers study. So this, which we refer to genome-led breeding, is one of the key approach that have been used in the breeding program. Right, so here I just want to show some examples that how the breeding program in Bambergana can actually help to develop a commercial variety with traits of interest. So the control crossings is done on the genotypes like S193 and Domaret. They actually produce a population which these population of breeding lines subjected in different environment for testing. And in this case, they are subjected under the drought stress so that we can screen for promising drought resistant lines based on the root traits. So the results actually shows that there are lines, at least 3 of them, excel in the grain yield production, especially under drought stress, and also have high root length density after the drought stress is being recovered. So with that, these 3 lines can be further selected and developed into the commercial varieties that can be released to the farmers eventually, where they have the traits that is more on the drought resistance mechanisms. So for Bambergana breeding program, so far we have quite a good establishments in South Africa with collaboration with University of KwaZulu-Natal, and also in Ghana, which we work with a research team in CSIR Crops Research Institute. For the progress of breeding program in Ghana, several single genotypes with traits of interest like early maturing, drought tolerance, high yielding have been selected and subjected to a series of field evaluation trial across the different agroecological zones. So this is to examine those lines for their adaptability and stability across a different type of environment before they go for variety registration and release to farmers. So for this, we aim to register the variety in next 2.5 to 3 years. And similar progress also have been reported in University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, where we actually subject populations of breeding lines in the multi-locational trial as well. And we select some germplasm that with improved cooking qualities and also high yield. And also we aim to have at least register one improved cultivars in next 1 or 2 years as well. So for Bambergana, we start with investigate or screening of diverse germplasms and also analyze the traits such as photoperiod sensitivity, drought tolerance, and followed by develop the structured population through control crossing, as well as utilize genomics tools for genetic analysis as well. And at the same time, we also examine the phenotypes, characterize the traits of the crops, go through purification and multiplication of the lines, as well as multi-locational field trial evaluation. That will lead to what we are in the progress now, which is to select the lines that can be developed into commercial variety with the traits of interest, and they have also need to be stable and adapt to different environments. So that would come with formal variety registrations, and we can go for large-scale seed production, distribution to farmers through seed companies, for example. So this Bambergana actually showcase the potential that to commercialize the underutilized crops, and we of course work with different research and industrial institutes across different countries. So it's just to have as examples that we have applied in Bambergana. So with that framework that have or pipeline that have developed in Bambergana, we also translate that into other under research species, such as example I use here, wing bean. So wing bean is a tropical legume. So to also looking into their breeding for the commercial variety with traits they're interested in, we also have a screening for their germplasms, characterize the phenotypic traits, purify and multiplication of the line, and followed by crossing, selections in the field with traits of interest. And in this case, we are looking at plant architecture, which is a relation to the yield. And also one of the key quality traits that we are looking at is the high protein content in the wing bean seed. So before I end today's presentation, just want to take this opportunity to thank our research collaborators or partners in University of KwaZulu-Natal, as well as Crop Research Institute in Ghana. I also want to thank my colleagues and students in University of Nottingham, UK and Malaysia, as well as other industrial partners as listed here. So this is about the end of my presentation, so feel free to have questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hui. And I see we have a question from Ndiko Ladidi. Please, Ndiko, take the floor.
Hi, Dr. Chai, thank you very much for a very good presentation. I really love your work. I was just wondering, and maybe it's because of ignorance from my side, being a plant scientist and really involved in the commercial aspects, but my perception, which might be wrong, is that seed companies work with commercial farmers that have, big finances to purchase seeds and so on. So as much as I like the idea of provision of seeds to poor farmers, when seed companies are involved, what is your take on that? Is it feasible to really provide seeds from, the new varieties, for example, that you would produce? Is it feasible to provide the seeds to poor farmers, given that seed companies would have a stake in the work that you've produced?
Right. Yes, thank you. Actually, this is always the challenge that I think I always feel when I work on this breeding program overall. We always have the challenge and issues, and probably something that we may need more assistance from other disciplines or stakeholders to help, especially this part. You are exactly asking the questions that we are also questioning ourselves about whether how easy we can actually get these seeds to really deliver to farmers and to help them, while actually there is commercial interest from seed companies. I'm not sure if I answered that correctly, but as far as I know, they have already some seed companies that we are working with right now. At least to my knowledge, they have some program that's actually specify that the seeds are sponsored and give to poor farmers for some programs that developed in their company. Whether to what extent they really can help the farmers in the bigger context, I think so far I can't really comment yet, but I hope that they are not only at the institute level, but also in some regional or countries level, national levels, that actually can have some policies that actually allow this to allow this sponsored seeds to the farmers, in addition to these seed companies. I'm not sure, is that some comments that you're looking for?
Yes. Thank you very much. That is spot on. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Sorry. Thank you.
Thanks, Hui, and thanks, Ndiko. And I believe that is indeed sometimes a tricky spot. And I believe that's where institutions like the Agricultural Research Council perhaps come in, where they also have a responsibility towards farmers in general to introduce these cultivars to them in a way that not necessarily bypasses, but also it's an alternative pathway, perhaps. Ndiko, I believe that you are from the ARC too?
No. I'm from the University of the Western Cape, UWC. But what you're saying about the involvement of the Agricultural Research Council is really true, because they have a national mandate to facilitate transfer of technologies to smallholder farmers as well. So yes, that's true.
Yes. Yeah. So I believe we continue hoping that that plays an equally important role as the seed companies. Great. Thank you, everyone. Are there any more questions?
Thank you.
William, Sam has perhaps for another engagement. Right. I would personally like to thank everyone that's here today. I believe we had more people who had signed up, but the turnout seemed to be much lower than expected. I apologize for that, but I really appreciate everyone who came in and stuck on to the end. I hope your appetite has been whetted and your curiosity has been satisfied. And you have our contact details, and now you know about the kind of work that the center does. So please feel free to contact us or to directly contact any of the four presenters, in fact, that we've had today. Right, so I'm just gonna, I think with this, I'm going to wrap here, but like I said, feel free to contact us. You will have our contact details in the email. So I think with that, I will conclude today's session. Thank you everyone for their time and their effort.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.